So much to catch up on from New York, and I just figured you guys love solo episodes and story time, and I have a bunch of notes on my phone from this entire month. Take a shot every time I say, so I went on a date. So I went on the Growing Up Italian podcast after they posted my clip that every single athlete would have been in my DMs. Should I expose who it is? I don't want to get sued, but like, should I expose him? He got married like not even a year ago. What is he doing in my DMs? You can't be scared to get caught. Like, knowing that literally my Instagram says podcast host, insecure men cheat, and I will literally say this till the day I die, because I'd be fucking dumb to sit here and not like decode that sentence and not think that there's a little bit of truth behind that. You're meeting a basketball player in the second minute. I don't know what it is with athletes and them liking me this trip, but like, what the fuck, honestly.
You're listening to the X Podcast. The X you keep coming back to.
This episode is sponsored by 760 Media, located on Idk Street. Guys, if you are listeners of my podcast, you know that I literally fully converted to 760 Media because they have so many different podcast rooms to film. If you were ever planning on starting a podcast, this is the place to go. They do cuts, trailers for you, everything. So you don't need to be an expert. You just let the experts do the work for you. So I have a discount code for you guys, and it's X the podcast at checkout for 15% off. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the X podcast. It's your host every single Monday, Alessia. If you don't have time to watch the full episode, I do post 8-minute clips on Snapchat, the best 8 minutes. So be sure to be following me there. And guys, if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, just click that follow button. It's not hard. I'm not asking for much. This episode is free. I figured we would do an episode, just me and you, catching up on some stuff. I've been in New York for probably the last month, and there's so much that's happened, and I feel like we all love good story time. When I'm going to be editing this, I'm going to be like, Alette, why did you talk about this? You're airing out your life again. But I didn't choose this life. The podcast life chose me. So that's what we're going with. Anyway, so we have so much to catch up on from New York. And I just figured you guys love solo episodes and story time. And I have a bunch of notes on my phone from this entire month. I went on the Growing Up Italian podcast, and they posted clips, and one of the clips went extremely, extremely viral. And the clip was basically me talking about Italians and how I told myself I would never date an Italian, and how recently I kind of changed my mind on that. After meeting so many in New York, I was like, wow, I can do a Guido. I can do a Jersey boy. When people meet me and they're like, I thought you were a Jersey girl, I'm like, I don't know if I should be saying thank you or extremely insulted. Something tells me if I'm being called a Jersey girl, I should be insulted, but I'm not. But I wouldn't mind a Guido. I'm yet to go to Jersey. Every time I go to New York, I never go to Jersey, and I heard that it's bumping. People who live there are going to be like, it's not bumping. We're actually trying to get out of there. We're trying to be in the city. So after being in New York the first time and meeting a bunch of Italians, I went on the Growing Up Italian podcast, and I was talking about how I think I could date an Italian. Like, maybe an Italian isn't bad. It's just the ones in my city that are bad. So I went on the Growing Up Italian podcast, and I said, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing I would date an Italian American. And in the comments put, taking applications for an Italian man. And when I tell you, every Italian and their mother were in my fucking DMs. They're like, hi, I'm sending my application. I'm like, oh my God. I was telling Sabino, I'm like, I didn't know that like this was going to do this. And he's like, oh, now what? We're cool. We've been asking you to come on. And now that, you're getting attention, you're realizing it's cool to be on the Growing Up Italian pod. what I didn't realize was that after they posted my clip, that every single athlete would have been in my DMs. You guys know me. If you're a listener of the podcast, you know that I'm not like I'm not really into athletes. When I think of athletes, my stigma is like they're dumb, they are cheaters. Like for me, I'm like, oh my God, I'd have too much anxiety to ever date an athlete. And like I get it when you're younger and you're just like, yeah, it would be fun to like have sex with one, you know? Like I get it. But I've never had sex with an athlete. I've never been about an athlete. I mean, I've hooked up with guys who said they were athletes. And by the way, every single guy who was almost going to be an athlete, guess why they weren't? Because they tore their ACL. If I had $1 for the amount of times I heard that from a wanting, aspiring athlete. I'm so mean. So the Growing Up Italian podcast is two American Italianos who started a podcast, and they every week get on Italians and talk about like random shit, but always to do with like Italians, like food, just everything you could think of, any kind of guest, like Vinny from Jersey Shore, like anyone Italian goes on their podcast. So like, I don't know what Alessia from Montreal is doing there, but yeah. She was there and she didn't represent her country well, apparently, because people were not having it. But you know what? I'm not a true Canadian. I'm not like wrong girl to have on. Like I'm just here to talk shit, talk about dating. Like don't ask me all the fucking why Montreal is French. Like I don't care. I don't pay attention to this shit. I don't know shit about history also. So I don't know if that's an ick for many people, but anyway, so I was going back and forth with the guys from Growing Up Italian, and I was like sending them screenshots of like who was getting in my DMs. And then all of a sudden I see this guy who has like, when I tell you, millions of followers. Like we're not talking 5, we're not talking 10, we're not talking 15. We're talking a lot of followers. He DM'd me, okay? And I was like, who's this like soccer player? He's so cute. So I go on his page. Well, I was on his page. That's how I found out he was cute. And then I see that like not even a year ago, the guy got married. I'm like, to the biggest bombshell I've ever seen in my entire life. And he's in my DMs. And I'm just like, really? Like, really? We're still doing this. Like, and I know it's so easy. We like see a guy with the hottest girl and we're like, wow, he must like he must be loyal. You know, it's like, I don't know. My brain always thinks that. I'm like, oh, like, I always think the good in people. I'm always like, I know like most people now, and a lot of women will always be like, oh, he's a well, single girls will be like, oh, he cheats, he's a cheater. I'm always kind of glass half full. I'm like, no, he's not a cheater. Anyway, so he's in my DMs and he just wrote to the Growing Up Italian pod because I had storied it. He put, ha, ha, ha. Let me pull it up. Should I expose who it is? I don't want to get sued, but like, should I expose him? Wait till the end of this video. Maybe I will. My type switched recently. I always said to myself I would never date an Italian.
Italian or Italian Canadian, Italian American?
Yeah, maybe not an Italian Canadian.
Okay. Like maybe. Italian from Italy.
Over time, I just feel like I'm like the most myself, and I was basically saying that, you know, it feels more homey to be with an Italian after, you know, meeting some American Italians. Anyway, so he answers that story. He's not following me or anything. He puts, ha, 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 crying face. I take a screenshot and I send it to the guys of Growing Up Italian because I'm like, hey, this is obviously coming from the video. And I'm like, yo, like, this is crazy. And he goes, I'm like, okay, like, he's definitely a cheater. I'm like, I just went on his page. Like, he got married, like, not even a year ago. What is he doing in my DMs? And then Sabino says, okay, he just put haha crying face, like, relax. He didn't do anything. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, even I, who thinks everyone is not a cheater, is like, okay, Sabino, like, are you serious? So then he's like, answer him. And I was like, okay, like, I'm a girl's girl. Like, I would never entertain something. I would never meet up with this guy. Like, I would never anything, okay? Because for me, I'm like, yo, you're married, you know? So I just put crying face and like the emoji like this. He puts, it was funny though. So I said, glad you laughed. He goes, so are you Canadian, but you live in New York? I just said something like that. And then he goes, haha, I'm Belgium, living in Spain, but now for a week with the team in the States. I sent it to Sabino. He's still like, yeah, no. I'm like, so now I'm like, okay, I see what's going on now. You're from Belgium, you're living in Spain, and you're coming to the States, and now you're trying to find out if I'm in New York. Then I was talking with Sabino, and I realized that they have a game coming up in New York. So I'm like, ooh, he's creating his roster for when he comes so he can cheat on his wife. And he's like, who is this girl? She sounds dumb enough to, you know, end up choking on that dick. End up like, you know, just like, oh, where am I going? And we're there. No. So I just said New York. He goes, we will be there. Anyway, so he's like, we will be in New York Friday, Saturday, and leave Sunday. Now in Chicago. And I just said, fun. Like, I'm just like, whatever. He goes, for sure. So then I was like, Sabino's like, well, if you're if you're gonna act that way, at least call him out. What, you're too much of a pussy to call him out that he's married? I'm like, no, I'll do it. I don't give a shit. So I go, too bad you're married. He goes, ha ha ha, sorry, we had a game. Too bad for what? ? To have fun? And then I never answered because I'm like, I'm too scared. I'm not getting involved in this. I just don't even, like, I'm not doing this. So yeah, so I basically never answered that. And he wrote again, how is your night going? Do these women of athletes know that they're cheating? I'm not saying they all do, but I'm saying, are they aware that this is going on? Because for him to have the nerve and the audacity and the balls to come into my DMs, you can't be scared to get caught. Like, knowing that literally my Instagram says podcast host, I talk about everything, I air everything out, I scare men away, and then this athlete comes in. Like, I'm actually curious to know what your thoughts are. Like, do you, like, if you were in my position, would you take a screenshot and send it to the wife? Like, does that make me a girl's girl? Or is that also like, Kayla, mind your own fucking business. You don't know this girl. You don't know him. Like, just, that's how I see it, okay? So, yeah, that's basically the first thing I wanted to say. It's funny how, like, guys will say that every girl is looking for the 1% of men that, you know, make 6 figures, who's 6 feet tall, you know, all of the above. And on the internet, all you hear is the 99% of men who are not actually the 1% of men who are making that, saying that, yeah, those men aren't going to be loyal. And it's like, there's so many men that are actually loyal who do have money, but it's never those guys who are talking. It's always the fucking losers on the internet. And it just makes women think that, like, loyalty isn't there. I hate when people go online and talk for every guy, every girl. Like, if you're gonna own it and state a fact, then stick it for yourself. Don't talk for everyone, because there are loyal guys and there are loyal girls. So that's what I have to say to all the people who talk and generalize for everybody, okay? Like, stay in your lane, buddy. Insecure men cheat, and I will literally say this till the day I die, because somebody who is cheating on you needs validation from other women, because he is so insecure with himself that he needs that. He needs that to fulfill himself. Okay, so I was in New York and this crazy story happened, and it just like kind of gave me the goosebumps. But I was in New York in the hotel room getting ready, just about to shower. My girlfriend's like, I'm going to get my hair done down the street. I'll be back. We're going to take a little break. Introducing Joy Mode. Joy Mode is a sexual performance booster, okay? So, ladies, men, I want you to listen up right now, okay? So, if you go to the gym, we all know, you know, having healthy blood flow is super, super important, especially to get on with your day. Also, if you're a man and, you know, you want to get lucky and, you know, you're used to over-the-counter pills, or you're not used to over-the-counter pills and you want to get that willy up and working and just be feeling your absolute best, you need joy mode, okay? Joy mode is good for women and men. It's 100% natural. All the ingredients in here are natural. And I know a lot of you don't take your vitamins. So this is just perfect to take every day, even if you don't want to get your willy up, okay? Even if you don't want to get your blood flowing, which I don't know why you wouldn't. All you have to do is open this up, take a packet, okay, put it in water. It tastes like lemonade. It tastes delicious, okay? 45 minutes before you're either going to get lucky, before a workout, before you're starting your day, and put it in water, shake it up, and start your freaking day the right way, okay? Use my discount code X the podcast at checkout for 20% off. Enjoy, and you're welcome. Now, I shower, I get out of the shower, I start my makeup, I'm doing my hair. My girlfriend leaves the hair salon and she's walking back. She's in Soho. She's walking back to the hotel. And all of a sudden, this guy starts to follow her. And he's like really like kind of close to her. And like, you know, when you're walking as a girl, you know, and you feel like someone kind of like behind you and like kind of just like, you're like, they're a little bit close. Like, it's a bit weird. She walks into the lobby and he's still following her. So now she's like, oh, okay, maybe he like, you know, is staying at this hotel. So she goes by the elevator and there's like a group of girls that are just like celebrating a birthday and like they see her walking in and they think at this point that she's with this guy because he's literally so close to her. So she's walking, she goes by the elevator, she clicks the door and she doesn't see him anymore. And she gets in the elevator and the elevator is literally about to close and he jumps in the elevator. Okay. And this is when I want to talk about like woman's intuition and just like feeling and like knowing when something's up. So she's in the elevator and she like looks at him and it's a guy who's like 6'3", like long ass blonde hair, band t-shirt, and like really, she said like really, really dark energy and like feeling like really nervous and like not really looking at her. And he jumps in the elevator and goes to the far like right. So he's like hiding where like, you know, the buttons are to click a floor. So she had already clicked her floor, which I think we were staying at the 11th floor. And he doesn't click a floor. So now she's in this situation where she's in the elevator. She's like, I actually think this guy is literally about to rape me because he's been following me since the streets. He's not clicking a floor number. And she's like, I just felt his like energy. So at this point, the elevator is about to close. And in her mind, and I'm sure as a girl, you've been in a situation in an elevator before where you're like, it's late. Like, I'd rather not be in an elevator with a guy. You guys all know my Uber experience where I almost got human trafficked. And like, I've been so good with that lately. And like, I've really overcome a lot and I'm very proud of myself for that. But she knows the situation and she knows I always talk about like trusting your intuition and all this. So I just think it's crazy. We've been on this trip this whole time and you know she knows the situation with me and how I'm always like trust your intuition. And so when she's in that moment in the elevator, I feel like if she wouldn't have been with me that entire week, she would have probably stayed in the elevator. But the last second before the elevator is about to close, she jumps out of the elevator, okay? So this guy jumps in the elevator and he's not actually clicking a floor. He clearly is not staying at the hotel and now goes up to the 11th floor where, you know, she was supposed to be in and comes straight back down and like leaves the hotel. And you're going to tell me that he wasn't going to do something? It's just so fucking scary being a girl, being a hot girl, being a girl just wandering around wherever you are. And this is why I always say women do not feel safe. Our brains do not turn off until we are with a man. And I think as a man, like you need to understand that. Like you need to understand that like we go through so much. Like we're walking in the day, we see something, we have to think about crossing the street. Like we're always worried about our safety. And I can't talk about this enough. So I just want to talk about me in this situation, okay? If she wouldn't have jumped out of the elevator and she would have clicked the 11th floor, he was clearly coming with her. Like, what was he going to do? Rape her? Kill her? Like, people are sick. God knows. And like, I'm just thinking about like, what if she was staying with a boyfriend? Like she was staying with me. God forbid she would have clicked the button she would have, you know, opened the door to the hotel room and he would have like launched himself in and he would have got 2 for 1 because I'm there showering. Like, and then he opens the door and like I just can't like, I don't know. Like, I don't watch these documentaries and stuff, but like, it must be scary to be like a serial killer or, you know, a rapist. Because in his mind, like, I don't think they think like they're psychopaths. Like, I don't think they're thinking, oh, what if, you know, when she gets to the floor and she, you know, does her pass to get into the room, that like there's a man's waiting in the door. Like what? Like, what's going through his mind? Because he was nervous. She said, like, she's like, I felt him, like, very, very dark energy. She's like, Aled, like, I felt it. Like, everything in me was telling me, like, this is really bad. And it just makes me think, like, he would have opened the door, and not only would he have opened the door and he would have been like, 2 fucking girls in this room, but it just makes me think like a psychopath is not thinking, because I feel like there's some psychopaths who would kind of think like, who would kind of be like more planned, or he's been following us and knows we're 2 girls in the room. But it just makes me think, what the fuck? Because what if her mans was waiting in the room, like, and he would have done that, you know? Like, but she was saying like, I don't think psychopaths think of that, or like rapists. Like, they're just like, they're going to do it. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine. Like, I'm out here, okay? I already have the Uber situation to worry about. And now you give me a fear of fucking elevators. I already have a fear of elevators for like just being in an elevator, okay? And it's stopping, it collapsing, and just being stuck in an elevator. Now I got to worry about who comes into the fucking elevator. Oh my God, add to the list of being scared as a woman. Anyway, it just really made me think, like, I'm here, taking a shower, and all of a sudden, what? We have a serial killer, a fucking Dexter in our room? Oh my God. Anyway, this is when I really think that, like, everything in life happens for a reason, and, like, it's just so weird how, like, when things happen, it's like, you know, they say, like, when you look at life backwards, like, it'll make sense, and I kind of, like, feel that in a way. Like, I just want to know, like, if she would have actually got out, if she wouldn't have heard me, like, always, like, keep, you know, saying like, trust your intuition, Steph, my girlfriend's name. And like, I don't know, I'm really rambling on with this, but it's just like one of those moments where like she, as a tough cookie, was like, no, like, I actually am so scared by what almost happened. And just to reiterate, okay, afterwards we spoke to the manager of the hotel. They ended up changing our floor because we didn't want the fucking serial killer to know that we were on the 11th floor. So we ended up switching to the 4th floor. And we asked the manager like to check, and he's not staying at the hotel, okay? The guy was not staying at the hotel. So you could think, oh, maybe he just was on the 11th floor. Maybe he was staying there. He wasn't staying there. I'm somebody who, like, in these situations when crazy things happen, I always think, well, what if that would have happened? And it's like, you can't bring your mind to that because you'll drive yourself insane because that wasn't meant to happen. And just, like, get rid of that, like, thought. But I can't help but, like, think, you know, how many people have been in situations where they were, like, scared to do something because they were scared of how it may look. Anyway, so I have a new fear, and it's elevators, but not for the reasons you're thinking. So, guys, whenever you have a gut feeling, intuition, I think women are pretty good with it. Just kind of ride that wave and trust yourself because you're normally not wrong. And I remember that night we were like having to go out and make a dinner, and it's like I just finished unpacking, and it was the first time I like hung up my clothes, and it's like, no, we're switching from the 11th floor now. Like, move everything. It was a fucking disaster. I went to Zero Bond for the first time in my life while I was in New York. And I know everyone talks about it being like a membership club, kind of like Soho, but like on another level. And apparently, like, you know, it's just like the elites go there. And I was always like curious because a lot of people talk about Zero Bond in New York. And I had a guy actually take me there on a date. And I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that 0 people were there. I don't know if it's because summer and like people are in the Hamptons, but we get on the date and we get there and there's no one, not one person in the fucking restaurant. I was like, you didn't have to close down the restaurant for me. And anyway, we're on the date and stuff. And the guy actually said something and I wanted to talk about it here. And I wanted to get like everyone's thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. He was like, all girls really want is to see a man suffer. Now, really think about that. What do you think about that? Because I'd be fucking dumb to sit here and not like decode that sentence and not think that there's a little bit of truth behind that. So what are your thoughts? Don't take it so literal, like we want them to suffer, but like really think about that sentence, because I think there is a little bit of truth in that. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. I want to give my thoughts, but like I said it to a couple of my girlfriends. They were like, actually, like, yeah, kind of. And I'm not taking it in the way so literal, like, yeah, we want them to suffer and die and like be in pain. But I think like to become a man, like we always say, you need to go through hard times. And I think for a man who's only had good times in his life and hasn't experienced things, it's very hard for like a woman to, you know, kind of feel safe to and kind of feel that like, I think for us to feel like our man is a man, like he's had to have gone through some kind of like hard time. So I kind of agree with him. I think that a guy who's only had good times in his life, like Dr. Sino has said, like, I don't know how safe we feel with a guy like that. You know, like, I don't know. I think that I in some way agree, and I would love to know your thoughts. I went on quite a few dates while I was in New York because New York is fucking expensive and I want to be eating good food. And what's better than to go on a date and just like get to know someone? They might end up, you know, they could end up being my husband. And if not, I ate free food, you know, like all a girl really wants is free food. All a girl wants is to be fed. It's not that hard to understand, men. And you know what, actually? So on my Instagram, I kind of like post things like, I'm not going on a coffee date. Like, you got to take me out for dinner. And I had matched with a guy on Raya and we started talking on text. Like, I gave him my number and he literally flat out in text said, by the way, I only do drinks. I don't go out. I don't do dinner with a girl. I think because I'm at a stage where I know what I want in a guy and like I move in a direction every day where I'm kind of like manifesting my husband. And I'm like, if something bad happens or like a guy treats me like shit, I'll always like kind of say out loud like, oh, like my husband would never do this, or like my husband would never put me through this, or like that's not something my husband would agree with or and that might be like really crazy to say, but it's almost like manifesting what you know already exists. And you're kind of like setting the standard for like your husband that you haven't met yet. Does that make sense? So so we were talking. He goes, what area are you staying in? I say Soho. He goes, I have a no dinner rule on a first date, lol, but I'm open to drinks if you are. So I'm like, okay, so he's probably looked into my podcast and saw that I don't do drinks with a guy. And honestly, you know how I say like, oh shit, like my podcast, like, oh, he's going to see this and like, oh my God, he's going to act differently. Or it's like, or he'll just expose himself right away and I'll save myself the energy, the time, because my husband would never put me through this. My husband would gladly want to make the effort, gladly want to do dinner with me, want to do that. Because it's like for him, he's like, I'm going out, I'm going to go eat anyway. So let me go eat with this girl. So for me to get a text like this, and I'm like, okay, he clearly looked into my page and saw that I talk about this. I thought it was hilarious that he said, I have a no dinner rule on a first date, but I'm open to drinks if you are. I literally wrote, I don't like a guy with rules. Ha ha ha. He goes, that's fair, lol. I said, at least we know now we would never work. All the best. Happy face. He goes, you too. Happy face. And done. I didn't waste my time. You didn't waste your time. A guy who's going to say I don't do dinner on a first date is like, so to me, I'm like, oh my God, my husband would never put me through this. My husband would want to do dinner with me. Like, he would be so excited to do dinner with me, and like there wouldn't be enough time in a day. Like, oh my God, he'd want to like spend so many hours with me, and he'd want to invest that time in me. So that's one of those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm so happy for him, I'm so happy for me, and like my husband would never do this. You know what I mean? And another situation with another guy, this is just like dating stage. Like, I have so many texts Okay, so a finance guy I was talking to on Raya, he was just kind of like, I want to do dinner. Like, he was like flaky though, like starting something, not really attaching to a plan. And you know me, like I see through these things. He's like breadcrumbing, or like he'll like say he wants to do something, but then he'll go to bed and like he won't follow up. And then in the morning, he won't say like, sorry, like I know we were going to do something. Like, it's just like, I'll read you some of like the convo. I just feel like guys who aren't going to take you serious are always like breadcrumbing, even in like messages. Like, they won't really connect to anything. They're going to talk, but then when it comes down to a plan, they're kind of like going to stop answering. They're going to write to you the next day. Anyway, so this guy writes dinner ? I said, yeah, let's do it. I answered him a bit late because I was podcasting. I said, sorry, was finishing a podcast before What's the Vibes. I answered him 2 hours later. It was still like 6 o'clock. He just like never answers me. Okay. But he had already done something like this. Okay. So he says dinner. I say, yeah, let's do it. Sorry, was finishing a podcast. What's the vibes? Never answers me. The next day he writes, we're struggling, but we're not dead. I'm like, oh, so you're going to avoid the fact that you asked me for dinner. I said, sure, let's do it. And then the next day you say we're struggling, but we're not dead. Like, this is like a fuck boy. Like, just making a plan, not really committing to it. Like, and for me, I'm like, again, my husband would never do this. He would know what he wants. He would be in a place in life where he would not have time to be doing this. This is disgusting, honestly. Then I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, literally do not write to me. Like, I'm like, I don't have time and energy to train someone. I don't have time to like try and understand someone. It's just like, I'm out. Like, and it's as easy as that. And so the next date, and now I'm not answering. He writes, hi. I don't answer. He writes again, hi. Then he goes, can we please say hi tonight? Because now he's like, it's Saturday. Like, she's in town. Like, I want to see her. But like, I fucked up clearly, because like he's realizing, you know, you asked me out for dinner and then you flake and then you like disregard the message. I literally was like, the games you play attract girls, unfortunately, not women. Stop messaging me respectfully. He goes, got you. And I just like, I feel so good in that. Like, I feel so good in just kind of being like, leave me the fuck alone. And I'm someone who like, don't owe you an explanation. I'll be gone like the wind. Like, someone like this is not going to learn. He needs to, you know, I don't know if it's an insecurity thing. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know if it's just because like, I don't know what it is. And frankly, I do not give a shit. I do know that he's not putting in the effort. And I do know that that's taking away from my energy that can be going to my husband. So casually walk past me and don't waste my fucking time. So, I thought that was kind of a power move, you know, to just be like, no. I feel like a lot of these guys are fuckboys, and when you just put them in their place, it's just like such a powerful trip. And I actually wanted to talk about something else. It's just fun to put them in their place, you know? I went on another date. I went on quite a few dates. And this guy was nice. I just like, you know, sometimes you just don't feel it. You're like, I don't know. There was a lot of things that just gave me like young vibes. Didn't feel like he had his shit together. I was just like, this isn't going to work because my husband has his shit together. So after the date, I didn't like ghost him. Like, he called me the next day. I answered. He sent me a few messages and I answered. And then I slowly kind of drifted away. And like, maybe this is where I need to be in my life, where I'm like, okay, like we didn't work out. Just the next day kind of send a message and be like, look, we're not on the same page. Like, I'm not feeling it. But I always think like ghosting someone, like I don't like that, because I don't like the confrontation of them having to be like, well, relax. Like, why did you send me that? You know, like you could have just ghosted them, like, which is what I like to do, because it's just like, you'll get the message. But this guy was literally like, can I please know why you ghosted me? And like, I want to know what your thoughts are on that, because in my mind, I'm like, well, get the hint, buddy. But then on another hand, I'm like, am I immature to not just be like, after the day, like, hey, like, had a great time. I just want to let you know that like, I'm not feeling it, and like, best of luck. Like, do I really owe that to someone I went on a date with once? I don't know, but it was like, it broke my heart when he was like, can I just know why you ghosted me? And I was like, oh my God, like, Because I know I've gotten ghosted by men, and I feel like I had to have a character where I was just like, it is what it is. Sometimes you ghost, sometimes you get ghosted. It's just the name of the game, you know? But yeah, like maybe as I get older, I should just kind of be more intentional with dating and just be like, look, like I had fun, thanks again, but it's not it. It's just that weird feeling of feeling like, okay, like relax, like I wasn't that down anyways, you know? Like I just feel like, bye. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think I need to be more straightforward? Because like it broke my heart when this guy was like, hello. Because normally like I will like write again and I just won't answer it. So like maybe they're feeling that way. But this guy actually vocalized that. So I was like, oh wait, like I feel like I'm being a bad person. And I was speaking about it with my mom and my girlfriend, and my mom's like, I don't get you. Like, take the time, my mom says, and write to him that, like, thank you so much. And like, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling like, be nice about it. I'm like, but is he gonna get the closure he wants from that? My mom's like, look, you do it once, you send it. And then like, look, if he starts getting into depth, like, but why it is, then yeah, don't answer. But like, be nice and do the first like kind of message. But I'm also like, closure is never like, do you really get closure when someone's like, oh, no, like, I wasn't feeling it? Because then it's like, you're like, but why? You know, then you start thinking like, because it's just like, truthfully, when you get ghosted, like, that is the answer. Like, you got it. Like, clearly something is off. So, like, to need that and seek that when, like, when I gotten ghosted, like, I get the message. I'm like, oh, okay, they're not interested. Or like something's going on in their life right now, you know? Like, I'm not gonna like, hey, like, why did you ghost me? So like, I don't know. I want to know what your thoughts are, guys, on that. Okay, take a shot every time I say, so I went on a date. So I went on a date with this other guy, and he was kind of like having wine with a friend. And he was like, look, bring a friend with you. And I was actually in New York alone, and I had met a girl from south of France there. And I was like, do you want to come? Like, just double. I know you speak mostly French, but like, come, let's just have a glass of wine. Let's see the vibes with these guys. Let's just go. So we get on the date, and I'm just like, instantly, we're both not feeling it. But like, normally I'm not feeling it, but like, they're still into it, or like, I have to find a way to like get out of it. And like, in this situation, he was kind of just like straightforward about it, where he was kind of just like, we were talking, and we're talking about Raya and whatever, and like how long, you know, we've both been on. But he's like, I know my wife is not on Raya though. And I'm like on the date, like getting to know this guy. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess, yeah, like there's no potential in me being your fucking future wife because you've already shot that down like that. You're just like, he's like, I'm on the app to meet cool people, but like my wife is not on Raya. And I'm just there like, okay, can I leave? Like, check please. Like, what are we doing here, you know? So after that second, I was already like checked out, but I wasn't feeling it 100% anyways. But he was just like had that kind of stance on life about a lot of things, like very close-minded. Like he's meeting up with me, but like for what? Like it's just like weird. The whole vibe is weird. And we're like outside drinking wine. His friend is in a relationship, but he's just there chaperoning. And my south of France girlfriend who's beside me is barely speaking, you know, English because she speaks better French and they don't understand French. So I'm kind of like, you know, doing translator and all that stuff. And then he's like, you know, like I'm the type of guy, and he was saying this thing, how he's like, you know, I love meeting cool people and cool adventures. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm already so checked out of this conversation. And then he gives me another example. He's like, yeah, like I was walking in the streets and I heard music playing from a building, and I was like, wow, this music is so sick and dope. So I buzzed the apartment number of the person, and I was like, wow, your music's so sick. Anyways, he's like, we got to talking. She came down. I ended up joining the party. Like, he's like free spirited like that. He just like joins a party, and he's like, it happened to be a VS model's crib, like apartment, and there was like a party going on. And I was like, oh, okay, like did you, now I'm like, I guess we're buddies at this point. I'm like, oh, do you hit it off with the VS model? And he's like, yeah, super cool girl, but like I'm not dating a VS model. And I'm like, oh, you're not dating a VS model. Oh, not the like she will never fucking touch you. Oh, okay, buddy. The confidence that's coming out of this fucking guy's mouth. Like, oh, okay. Like, bitch, you're fucking lucky if you get a fucking VS model. She ain't dating you. Like, relax, buddy. Anyway, this is all going on the date, and like I'm messaging the girl, and I'm like, we need to get out of here. And all of a sudden, I think it was like funny to see once where he was also trying to get out of it. So he like messaged his friend, like, I'm so like, I see all of this. And he looks at his friend, and he goes, no, buddy, you didn't tell me we had X's birthday today. And I'm like, just watching this, sipping on my wine, like, oh my God, he's literally like trying to get out of this date. I'm like, I don't even have to give my excuse. This is perfect right now. So I'm just like watching them play their whole act because like I've done this with girls like so many times. So it's just funny to see them trying to get out of, being with us. And he's like, no. And then he looks at me and he goes, you're never going to believe. And I was like, oh, it's okay that you have to go because like we're going to do our own thing too. And he's like, I text you later. And I was like, oh, like I can't fake these things, by the way. I was like, oh no, like don't text me later. Like, no, no, it's okay. And he's like, wow, so like you have something to do now? Cause I was like, oh yeah, like we had another plan we were gonna go to. He's like, oh, okay, so you guys had plans too? So it just worked out perfectly then? Like it was just so cringe and so like, oh my God, no. Like I can't even explain, guys. I was like, literally, when he said, so like I text you later, I was like, no, don't. And he's just looking at me like, no. And I was like, no, just go, like leave. We're gonna finish our glass of wine and we're like heading out to like just leave. And he's like, yeah, I know, unless you want to pay the bill. And I was like, oh, no, pay the bill and then literally leave. So they leave and I'm like, oh my God. Now I have to explain and translate everything that really happened to my girlfriend who's beside me. All of a sudden the guys next to us just said, oh, like, where are you girls from? So one of the guys who's like had his back to us turns around and I'm like, oh, he's quite cute, And anyway, whatever, we get to talking and he's like, I don't mean to snoop, but like, what happened to the guys? Like, they just picked up in Lee. I was like, yeah, like they weren't feeling it. We weren't feeling it. He's like, oh, okay. Like, where'd you meet these guys? And I was like, oh, like we met on Raya. And then the guy goes, there's girls like you on Raya. I think I'm going to think twice about applying. Maybe I'll get on the app. So like, haha, banter. I was like, okay, he's flirting with me. And then I find out he's a basketball player. He's like 6'10", okay? He's retired though. He's no longer a basketball player anymore. And I'm like, leave it up to New York, okay? To be on a fucking date, for them to dip and to meet a basketball player, watch me get fucking, rejected, and then pick up right where they left off and took his number down and continued my night with my girlfriend because he was out with his buddy, catching up. And anyway, took his number down, ended up going for dinner with him. That was super fun, super great. And I just thought it was funny how, like, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You get rejected one day, you're meeting a basketball player in a second minute. I don't know what it is with athletes and them liking me this trip, but, like, what the fuck? Honestly, like, what the fuck? I don't know if anyone's ever been in a situation like this where, like, you meet a really good guy or someone, like, you can really see a life with, but they're recently single. I feel like I've never really spoken about that. And I just kind of want to give advice on that because I feel like, honestly, nothing that is meant for you will ever pass you. But I also think that, like, sometimes, like, you can't control when you meet someone, but also, like, if you're not in the right, like, timing is everything. Like, if you're not in the right headspace, you can meet the most perfect person and, like, really share a lot of values. But, like, if you're not at the same place in life or, like, you're going through a breakup, like, to bounce into something else is, like, also not the answer. And sometimes people don't even know it for themselves. So let's say, like, you're on the other end of it where, like, you've been out of a relationship and you're, like, ready for a relationship, but this person is recently single. I think sometimes it's better to, like, kind of guard your heart and maybe, like, not jump into something even if they're kind of, giving you all the signs that they would go through something with you. Because I think a lot of times they don't even want to do it, but because it's all they know and they're just getting out of a relationship, they're, like, kind of doing relationship things and acting relationship-y because that's all they know, and it's because it's so fresh and recent to them. So you might be falling under that spell, but it's just because that's all he knows. So I think it's really important as someone who's, like, been through this, even, like, recently, like, really take a step back because what's for you will never pass you. And sometimes, like, it's so hard because you're like, wow, like, the one time, like, I feel like I met someone that I really fucking vibe with, like, I have to like let this go because he's recently single. I'm like, fuck, that's fucking shitty. But I'm curious if anyone else has ever been in a situation like that. It's kind of like a weird, it's like, it's all about timing. Like, that guy could be so perfect for me, and it's like, recently single. Ay, ay, ay. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I would like to know if there's like anyone who like met someone recently after they were in a relationship. I think for women, it's a little bit different because before we get out of a relationship, we've already planned our escape probably like months before to years before. So when we get out of it, it's like, it's not a shock. We're not like, we've already mourned the loss. Whereas like men, it's the other way around, I feel, where they really go through it after the breakup. So when you meet a guy after he gets out of a breakup, it's really a scary time because, you know, all he knows is how to be in a relationship. So when you meet him, you're like, wow, this guy is like being such a gentleman. He's treating me so well. And also when someone comes off too strong at the beginning, it's because it's all they know if they're just getting out of a relationship. They only know how to do coupley cute relationship things. So you got to be careful and like guard your heart and like be aware of these things. And don't get your heart broken because you're like, wow, like really assess the situation. And I think that's something that I had to learn, like, recently, you know, it's not done until it's done. And then after it's done, people need time and like they need to really be alone and to figure it out. I know it's not always the case. And sometimes, you know, you might have a story where like you guys met when you recently were broken up. But like, I don't know. I just think for the most part, that's been like really telling to me, you know, like really letting things fall into place. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. I also went to see a fortune teller when I was in New York, but like not a legit fortune teller that I've been told is like amazing. I've been told that in New York, there's like gypsies all, it's like a scheme at this point. You know, in New York, there's like fortune tellers on every corner and it's probably a scheme at this point. But I see a booth right outside of the apartment I was renting and I'm like, oh, great. Like they're reading fortunes for like $10. Let me go sit down and see what she has to say. And so I sit down and I think the girl's going to like read me or whatever. And all of a sudden I get on FaceTime with a girl. The daughter puts her mom on FaceTime. I'm like, wait, it's not even an in-person situation. So I sit down and I'm on FaceTime and she goes, show me your eyes, show me your palm. And then she starts saying things that were like, I feel like so true. And I don't want to share too much about it, but she was like, you've had anxiety for the last 2 years. You missed out on an opportunity a year and a half ago. And like, these were all things that I was like, wait, like, I think these are true. You have a pain on your left leg. And I was like, kind of, yeah. She's like, you have 2 soulmates. You haven't met one yet. And I was like, I don't know what to believe about all of this, but like, I'm just going to walk around and bobble and be like, okay, well, I haven't met one of my 2 soulmates yet. And like, it is what it is. Mitko, who's been on the podcast, you guys know him, came down and I made him do it because I was like, yeah, no, they said some shit. Like, you should try it for yourself. He sits down. He's like, Aled, that was the worst experience ever. She didn't know anything. My mom is dead. Why is she talking about my mom like she's alive? And I was like, oh my God, did I really miss the mark with this going and see this fortune teller? I don't know. Anyway, so much shit has happened, but overall, New York has been super great. I've had friends come in and out while I was there. I had time to be alone and just kind of see the vibes of like, okay, I know I'm working towards getting a visa, but like, what are the vibes? How do I feel here? I know that it's fucking expensive and I better start making more money to like live there. It's so crazy how like my family could be here and like I don't feel like it's home, but when I'm there, I feel like it's fucking home. Before I leave you guys, I do want to say that I am planning on doing a dating episode where I'm going to be blindfolded and we're going to have some contestants here and I'm going to be dating several guys, okay? I have one of my girlfriends who helps me out, who's like my mini assistant, who is going to be taking applications if you want to be part of this. So we're going to be blindfolded and I'm not going to know who the contestants are and we're going to play a few games. And yeah, so if you're interested, we're going to put out, the flyer and you can, send in your Instagram and Basically, we're going to pick 3 people and you'll tell us why you want to come on. And it'll be fun. It'll be something different. I want to like switch it up. I want to do different kind of, interviews. Send it to this email because I can't know who the guests are. It needs to be 100% authentic. So I'm going to put it down below. But without further ado, guys, I love you guys. I will see you next fucking Monday. We have a few fun interviews and things coming up. So stay tuned. I love you guys. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe and comment down below.
You're
See ya.
listening to the X Podcast.